I was just given some guidance to a woman. She was about 62, and she was talking to me about having an alcohol addiction. And so I was kind of explaining to her, because she had mentioned she used to have a hard drug addiction, and she was able to recover from that, but now has an alcohol addiction. So I was explaining to her that she never really fully recovered, because what happens is you just trade one addiction for another. It's not actually recovery. And that could be even simple as food addiction, shopping addiction, which she said she also had. And so with her, I was kind of explaining it's more of just a form of suppression, and that's why you never actually recover from it. It's because you're just suppressing it. You're finding an alternative or something else to suppress it. And I said you have to find the underlying cause. And I said that generally comes from self-worth. And so that is generally something that starts at a very early age. So that would be an inner child wound. And so what happens is, I explained to her, that usually happens within the first 5 years of your life. That's when most inner child wounds take place. And that usually takes place from a caretaker. And so what happens is, it's not really an addiction, it's a suppression from an underlying cause of not feeling worthy. And that was not from her not feeling worthy, that was installed into her. So at some point within that first 5 years, a caretaker, a parent, generally a parent, mostly maternal, but can also just be biological, which means it could just be that caretaker that's around them the very most. And so they can pick this up. But with the maternal, then it becomes generational, which is most of the cause. And so what happens is, this caretaker, this person that's primarily in their life, creates this wound, this inner child wound, mother or father or both, and they create this wound of not feeling worthy. And that could stem from many of things. And so you take that inner child wound and you carry it through your life, conscious or unconscious. Sometimes people don't even realize it, and it develops a addiction to something, because that addiction is what suppresses it and temporarily makes you feel better. But when you sober up, or you're at a point where you are unable to receive that form of addiction, because if it's shopping, you're not sobering up, but when you run out of money, okay? It's kind of like sobering up. You're unable to access that addiction. Same with food, whatever the case is. And so what happens is you become deprived, and so you look for that next thing to feed that addiction. And so when that happens, it's something that you're bringing forward into your adult years. And like I said, with her, she is 62, and so 62 years of her life she's suppressed these emotional feelings of not feeling worthy. And she immediately said it was my mom. So she knew exactly what I was talking about. And so I told her, not only did she carry it forward, and that's what's causing her addiction. So the addiction is the secondary symptom. The primary symptom is feeling unworthy. And so when you can address that inner child and understand where it's actually coming from, it's not the actual addiction. That's just the suppression, the part that's making her feel better. Or temporarily not think about these emotions. That came from her mother. I said, okay, we're going to take it back a little bit further. So mother, which would be a mother wound, caused this inner child wound of not feeling worthy, which therefore you've carried through subconsciously or unconsciously and created these addictions throughout your life, and you've gone from addiction to addiction in different cases to feel better or suppress these emotions. I said, your mother also has that feeling of unworthy. And so what happens is that's where the generational trauma comes in, and you can break that cycle, because once you recognize, one, that primary symptom, it's an inner child wound of feeling unworthy. I said, rather than just focusing on the addiction, you can find out where that primary cause is coming from. The easiest way to break it is to, one, understand she also had this primary cause, most likely had addiction herself, and transferred it to you. So her feeling unworthy now makes you feel unworthy because she, whether she said something, did something, behaved a certain way, whatever caused her to transfer that unworthiness to you, now you stem from it. So she most likely suffered from addiction of some form, feeling unworthy, and then when she had you, within the first 5 years, she installed that into you. Now you feel it, and that's where the generations come from and the trauma. But the easiest way to break this is to ask yourself, do you believe it too? So, not just focusing on the addiction, but focusing on the unworthy, okay? Ask yourself, are you really unworthy? Or are you just believing that because that's what was installed into you? So they were taking their trauma wound and creating your trauma wound and not feeling worthy because they didn't feel worthy. Or in some cases, it could be a form of jealousy, and unfortunately we don't want to believe this, but a parent or a caretaker can actually stem, it's in the heart space, something you have that they don't, develops a jealousy pattern, and so they install this unworthy into you. So it can be transferred either way. They're either unworthy or it comes from jealousy. But they transfer this inner child wound into you of you not feeling unworthy because they don't want you to have something they never had. Or, again, it's generational. They felt unworthy. They're going to install the unworthy in you. But when you can self-reflect and recognize, do you believe that to be true? Or do you believe you are worthy? When you can separate that and you can ask yourself that, and when you ask yourself, do I believe that too? Because if you believe that too, you are unworthy. But if you disagree and not believe what the trauma they're trying to install into you, you can recognize, I am worthy. And as you start to go throughout your life and you start realizing, I am worthy, you no longer need that form of addiction to suppress that feeling, because we're healing the unworthiness, which comes in the heart space. And you can forgive and understand that was also their trauma wound, which was most likely installed in them. That's where the generation comes from. Or if it's a jealousy, you can still forgive because you can understand they were coming from a place of lack. They didn't have. And so they were transferring that trauma into you, but that does not make that you. You do have it. You are worthy. And when you realize that, you can stop that generational trauma, and you can realize your jealousy doesn't define who I am, what I deserve, what I've earned. And so when you can do that, you can break that addiction, you can break that generational trauma by understanding, I don't want to carry on your trauma. I'm a different person than you. I am worthy. And I don't believe what you installed into me. So you might have that belief. I have a different belief. But it takes you to recognize it's not an addiction. It's a self-worth caused from an immediate caretaker that also felt unworthy or jealous and installed that into you, and you can realize, I don't feel the same. I don't believe the same. I have my own belief system, and I believe I'm worthy. I have earned it. And I no longer need this addiction of food, of shopping, of substance, or alcohol to make me feel worthy. I now am worthy. Worthy of a good life. Worthy of a good family. Worthy of a healthy life. Worthy of not needing, whatever that means to you. So addiction doesn't come from just addiction. It's generational, and it comes from being unworthy and a trauma wound. So you have to trace it back. And whatever that means to you. So when I say unworthy, think back. You know, sometimes you can remember, sometimes you can't. If you can't, that's okay. You can still move forward from now knowing something affected you. You may not be able to remember, but you know it's not to be true. It's something that was installed to you. If you can remember, do you agree with that? Do you believe the same? Or do you have your own beliefs and not carrying that same generational trauma?